Uh-oh. Oh, magic.
Steve, perfect.
Wow. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Good, good. Is this your kitchen?
No,
No.
it's my study, otherwise known as my studio.
So I don't have my glasses on, so it looked like there was food in the closet. Sorry. That's the room.
Okay.
That's the kitchen.
Okay.
Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it so much.
It's my pleasure.
So I'm going to jump in and ask you some questions. You ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we'll start with the global, and then we'll work down more towards the personal. Like, how are you seeing, your perspective is different than other people I've been talking to. It's mostly been artists. And I'm on the presenting side, you're on the funding side. How are people coping with all this? I'm sure you're talking to lots of people that are like, I have no funding, what do I do? How do you find that artists are coping with this in New England?
It's a pretty desperate situation for artists. You know, I think that the loss of income from teaching, whether it's, you know, summer teaching or working in public schools, so many teaching artists in our region who sustain themselves that way with schools being closed. That's not happening. Nobody was salaried, you know, everybody was working on contract. And yeah, exactly. And of course, performances, exhibitions shuttered. Some of the saddest things for me are people sharing videos of exhibitions that, you know, will never be encountered by people in the real space, but everything's like set up and ready to go.
It's been fascinating with me that all three artists I talked to before this talked about in concept, they figured if they had all this time in a space, they would immediately be working on their art in some way. They could, Daniel and Ray Vega are composers, Adele's a choreographer, like they'd be, and all three of them are like, I'm not doing that. I'm taking some space, I'm breathing. I don't feel compelled to actually achieve and perform artistically right now. I feel like I just need to breathe and you know, be alive. And I thought that was really kind of fascinating. I was wondering if you were hearing that as well.
To tell you the truth, I've been mostly in conversation with folks like you, people who are running venues or cultural organizations. And most of the artist feedback that I've gotten has been from direct questions to our grantees that have been pretty focused on how they're being economically impacted.
It all changed so quickly for this condensed period of time where everything was lightning bolts. And now, now it's just these long conversations like this, like how do we get out of this? And so that's my next question is, how do we come out of this? How does this eventually, how do you see it at this moment? I'm not asking for crystal ball stuff because nobody can tell, but at this moment, how do you see us coming out of it?
I think there will be some fits and starts, but when you think about the psychology of it, we are all getting bizarrely rewired. You know, it's like you walk down the street. One of the things I enjoy about walking in my neighborhood is observing the physical dance of, you know, the 6 feet bubbles of separation and like how we all pass each other. It's like we're kind of dancing together in some way as we move in these lovely shapes and circles. But I think the other thing I would just say about thinking ahead, like what's the future, how are we going to come out of it, is I really want to come out of this with our like most critical, valuable, you know, places and artists and gathering spots still intact. You know, I think not all of those individuals or organizations or kind of civic connection points are financially strong. But that doesn't correlate to their preciousness. So it's just, how do we make sure that we don't come out of this into an environment that feels strangely bland and some common denominator of what arts and culture spaces and makers were sort of set up financially to survive it and which weren't. So that's something I've been thinking about a lot.
Oh, me too. Me too. I see that.
I think it really is. So I'm kind of thinking like, where is the heartbeat in every community? And how do we really think about identifying and being like very specific allies and supporters of those people and places?
So I think it seems inevitable that the landscape will be different, right? In 6 months, a year, it'll all look a little different, and the funding as well, right? The whole picture of everything will seem a little different than it is right now.
I know.
And I guess if we had the crystal ball, we could figure out what those changes are going to be. But it seems that every day that's a 90-minute conversation every day, and it's different every day, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, I guess looking forward, I would assume, I think it's a real positive that in a lot of cases, philanthropy and private foundations are really stepping up right now, you know, letting funds be repurposed and trying to, you know, spend consistent with their planning, even as their endowments shrink in value. But presumably in a couple of years, that will catch up with everyone, and there'll be a lot of contraction even in philanthropy.
NEFA's trying to do that as well. You guys are trying to be as flexible as possible with the funding that you give us.
Yeah.
Certainly seems like a long time to be hard ass about things.
Exactly. You know, I think, you know, one of my colleagues sort of said in a rejoinder to her constituency, I think it was Lisa Hoffman at the Alliance of Artist Communities, if you've got a cash reserve, now is the time to use it. You know, please do not hold on to your reserves through this period of time. You know, put them to use, do what you can to support your people and your artists. And to that end, one of the things that I feel especially happy that NEFA has done is we have a risk reserve of our own. And because of the unique nature of this situation, our business continuity is not really affected because we're like a bureaucratic administrative entity. Right. So we can keep doing that work because it's not about gathering people in places. We support others who do that. And we can continue to work remotely. So we just kind of looked up and realized we don't actually need our risk reserve right now for ourselves. We need to use that risk reserve and put it all into emergency artist relief. So we just put $282,000 into emergency artist relief. And it's like same point that you know, Lisa was making. It's like, if you've got emergency funds, people, please put them to use right now. So,
if this is not an emergency, I fail to see what is. So,
and we shouldn't even, I mean, the gallows humor and all this, but I think the other thing we're thinking about, you know, at NEFA, starting to realize like this is serious illness, and it takes a long time for a lot of people to recover from it.
If anybody was taking it for granted before, I think we're all definitely appreciating the work of the New England Foundation for the Arts. Anybody that does the work that helps fund this whole industry, it really is not anything we're going to be taking for granted for a while. So we certainly appreciate all the efforts that you and the staff do.
Thank you for saying that. Honestly, we are, that we are working really hard because if not now, as you said, when? It's the same with, right. To me, the sense of solidarity and community has been pretty palpable and strong. And I think that sense of collaboration, sharing resources, information, somehow not feeling like we've got to figure it all out ourselves as individuals, has been a positive. People have been generous with their time, their leadership advice, their
I think
strategies.
the enormity of this forces humility on you if you don't even have it, right?
Yeah.
There's no way anybody can live with this. Oh, I know the solution.
Yeah.
Very few people can do that. Nobody I know. It almost makes you, oh, I got to talk to other people and see what they're doing. We have to figure this out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it has been great. It's been a great, the New England community of presenters is just a really spectacular group. And,
I agree.
so.
That's another thing I think about a huge amount is privilege. Just feeling fortunate, as I said in NEFA's case, like our jobs have not changed as much, our work continues, our sources of revenue are somewhat insulated, but also I just feel really we're fortunate to be in a kind of helping role as it is. You know, that's what we're supposed to do, is help and support. So arguably there's more of a sense of purpose now than ever in doing that work. So it keeps me mentally on track. But yeah, I think just recognizing that all of the directives right now to shelter in place, that I just feel lucky that I have some space, some light, some other people in my place. So true.
What are you doing on a personal level? How do you stay sane day to day?
Well, I had my own little literary moment of grief last night when I finished the third Hilary Mantel book in the Thomas Cromwell series, The Mirror and the Light. So taken together, those three books were probably about 2,000 pages worth of reading. If you haven't read them, they are incredible.
I've started the first one a few times. I gotta push through and really make the.
You do. You do.
Well, Cathy, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and to work through all this. It's just always great to talk to you and get perspective on the funding life in this strange, bizarro time. And grateful for all NEFA does and all you do, and the incredible staff you have. We love them as well. And
you know, we love you and your colleagues. Yeah. You guys are the best. Yeah, you're one of the. Yeah, you are one of the gems in our New England landscape. So
it's an amazing place in terms of arts and theaters and people. I'm quite taken with it. So we're gonna come back.